And I think over the course of 2.5 years, I made 5 different trips to India, to Jaipur. So the second thing that happened is that I got a chance to spend a lot of time with my mother, which I hadn't done since I had left for college. And during that time that we spent together, I got to know my mother's girlhood because we went to the fruit market and got the fruit that she loved to eat that she can't get in the United States. We went to Agra, which is where she was born and where she went to school. We went to visit her school and the headmistress there. We went to the Jaipur Palace, and she told me about the time that she had had an audience with the Maharani Gayatri Devi. We also, stopped in front of the Hawa Mahal, and we had a kulfi there, and she told me about all of the ladies behind the jolly at one point who used to be looking out at all of the public going by. So I really gained an appreciation for what my mother was like as a girl and the kinds of things she liked to do and read and eat and hang out with her friends and so on. And I started thinking, what would mom's life have been like had her father not taken her out of college at the age of 18 and had an arranged marriage? What would have happened if my mom hadn't had 3 children in rapid succession? And what would have happened if she hadn't been of service to my father and also to my brothers and me for the rest of her life? What would she have done in terms of making a living? How would she have spent her time? And this is where the henna artist was born. So Lakshmi is our henna artist. When we meet up with her in the book, she is 30 years old. She has been for 13 years away from a husband that she deserted in a small village, but now she lives in Jaipur, and she's a celebrated henna artist to the elite women of Jaipur. And I based it in 1955 because that was the year that my parents were married. It was also the year that divorce became legal. So now Lakshmi is in a position where she can legalize this separation from her husband, as opposed to just sort of pretending that her husband might have abandoned her, because nobody really knows what happened to her husband. And also I wanted to base it in 1955 because it's close enough to independence that we know that India is still establishing itself as an independent country. We know that there's a lot of infrastructure that's being rebuilt. We know that Indians are feeling very proud of the fact that they have their country back, that they can set their own policies, that they can determine how they want to educate their own children. So it's a time of exuberance and excitement in India, and I wanted to capture that in the novel. Additionally, what was easy for me to mine in terms of research at that time was the fact that both my parents were born in the 30s and then were alive during independence and were married after independence and had their children. So they were around that whole period, and I could actually count on them to tell me a lot of their stories and what life was like back then. So, and I was born in 1958, so that, a lot of my memories also came into play as I started writing about Jaipur. We lived in Rajasthan until I was 9 years old, and we had moved around to 4 different cities. We'd even lived up in Punjab, in Chandigarh, for 1 year while my father was getting his first master's degree. So, we're doing, mom and I are going back and forth. I'm writing this novel. It starts taking shape, and then it becomes my thesis, as Rashmi said. And my mom is present during my thesis reading, and I get to introduce her as my muse. And she has already given me her blessing on the book. She kept saying, "Honey, this is really good. I hope you keep going." Then she unexpectedly died about 8 months after my thesis reading while I was polishing up the novel. And then I just stopped working on it for 2 years. And then my mentor called me one year and said, "Hey, how is that novel coming along?" So I started dusting it off, and I read it, and I thought, oh, I like this world. I like where Lakshmi is. I want to continue working with her. So I started working on the novel again. I sent the novel to my mentor and said, well, I polished it up some more. What do you think? She sent it off to her agent. Next thing I know, her agent is calling me and saying, I love this novel. I love the whole idea of it. I like the characters. Let's go ahead and represent you. but I need you to fix these things in the novel. So then for 4 more years, she works with me on making changes to the novel. At the end of 4 years, I finally said, well, now, when are we going to be ready to publish this? Because surely we're getting close, right? And she said, oh gosh, no, I have taken you as far as I can take you. And now I need you to get a book editor, because that is the kind of person who needs to read your novel and let us know exactly what's going to happen, and how you can strengthen the novel, how you can strengthen the characters. And I said, oh my gosh, I thought we had been editing this whole time. But then I did find a book editor, and then she started working with me. She gave me about 15 pages of corrections, changes, suggestions for strengthening the novel. And I was kind of blown away, because I was hoping that she was going to say, oh, your novel is so publishable, there's hardly anything that needs to be done. It's perfect just the way it is. But that's not what she said. So then I spend the next year and a half working on her changes. And finally, when I get her changes done, then I go back to my agent and I say, okay, now are we ready to publish? And she said, well, I don't know. You know, we may have a couple more things we have to do. And I said, oh my gosh, Emma, we have to get this novel out the door, because I've been working on this for 9 years. I would really like to have something happen to this novel. So she said, okay. She sold it within a couple of months. And then I got a new editor, an editor at the publishing house. My publisher is Mira Books, which is a division of HarperCollins. So then I have a new editor, and now she is working with me on some changes. But I thought, you know, I'm so close. I can't give up now. It's been 9 years. Now I'm working on it. It'll just take me 1 more year, and we will have it published. Sure enough, on March the 3rd, we're ready to get this book published. HarperCollins has done everything they possibly can to pre-sell the book in all the bookstores, to get the, you know, all of the PR out. They've got the book in the hands, I guess, of Reese Witherspoon. You know, they've done everything they possibly can. They've scheduled a tour for me in the US and Canada, and then COVID hits. So suddenly every single book event is canceled. Every single opportunity that I could have had to talk to readers is canceled. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I spent all of these years writing this novel, and now I cannot even get it into the hands of readers. Amazon is no longer delivering anything but essential supplies. All of the bookstores are closing. All the libraries are closing. I just thought, what kind of karma am I carrying around in this life that is making it so hard for me to talk to readers? And then Reese Witherspoon calls. And that really turned everything around, because she gave me enough encouragement to keep going for the next month and a half while we were developing content for the social media for the Reese Witherspoon Book Club. And I'm writing about saris, and I'm writing about jewelry, and I'm writing about food, and I'm making cooking videos and so on. So we do all of that. We get all of that done. And then May 1st hits, and Reese gets to announce that she has chosen the henna artist. And now suddenly I'm getting calls from book clubs saying, you know, would you please talk to us? Would you please talk to us? So now at this point, I have closed in on almost 200 book clubs on Zoom. I think that in writing, there are 3 things that you have to keep in mind: perseverance, persistence, because I had to keep nudging my agent. I had to keep nudging her. Are we ready to publish yet? Are we ready to publish yet? And then the last is patience. So I tend to be an impatient person. I want to get things done right away. But I just had to learn that the writing is going to be ready when it's ready. There is a lot of rewriting that happens with writing. So the henna artist that got published this year is probably my 30th version of this book. That's how many drafts it took me to get to this point. I had to rewrite the scenes over and over to make them more compelling. I had to keep going deeper and deeper into the characters to understand what their intention was. What did they want from this life? And did that intention change over time? I had to go through a lot of story arcs of each of the characters and figure out how are they starting in the beginning of the book, and how are they going to end up? Where are they going to end up? How will that change have happened within them? Because we want to make sure that these characters feel real, right? So when characters feel real, you have to imbue them with strengths and weaknesses. They can't just be all good. They can't just be all bad. They have to be imperfect. So that's, another piece of advice that I would give is when you're developing characters, you want to go deeper and deeper and deeper, which means you're going to find some of the bad as well as some of the good in those characters. And then I think another piece of advice would be that you want to study with people who have been recently published. When you study with people who, authors who are published in the last, let's say 5, 6 years, they have contacts in the industry who can really help you. So when my book, for example, was sort of ready to be sent to an agent so that the agent could figure out if they wanted to work with me or not, my mentor helped get that manuscript into her agent's hands. And it's so helpful when somebody can forward your manuscript on in that way, in a very personal way. Sending your manuscript blind to agents and publishers is a very difficult way to get published, because many of those manuscripts will just sit in a big stack and never get read. There is just not enough time to read all the manuscripts that come to an agent's way. But if an agent or a publisher gets a letter from somebody saying, hey, Susie, remember me? I wrote that book, blah, blah, blah. It was a bestseller. By the way, I have this manuscript from a friend. I think it's really good. Will you please have a read? They will definitely read something like that. So that's the other thing is, if you're going to study with somebody, if you're going to take an online course, if you're going to do anything like that, please study with somebody who has published in the last 5 years to 6 years, because that is going to stand you in good stead when your manuscript is ready to be sent around. I actually saw it as a movie the entire time that I was writing, because that is the way I write. I write because I see everything visually in my head. I see the characters moving. I see the fabrics on the couches. I see what they're wearing, what the colors and patterns are that the characters are wearing. I see the paintings on the wall in a room that they're in. I see all of that. And then I imagine the characters start moving within that scene. And then as they start moving, I think, no, I don't want this person to be sitting on the couch. I want her to be standing up. So then I redo the scene in my head, and now they're standing up and they're saying other things to the other characters. So I keep doing that in my head. And then when I'm finally ready to put it down on paper, then I actually go to the computer and start putting it down. Otherwise, it's all just happening in my head. So I saw the whole thing as a movie. And I think that is what appealed to the screen adaptation companies when they got the book and it started making the rounds in Hollywood. People said, wow, this is going to be really easy to bring to life because it's already all here. All of the description is here. All the colors and the sounds and the sensations are all here in the book. This is going to be an easy transfer to the screen. Yes, we wrote in an executive producer credit for me, which means I'm in the writer's room and I get to see the scripts. I get to understand whether these characters would actually be saying the kinds of things that they're writing. You know, I'll be able to say, no, I think Radha wouldn't quite say it that way. I think she might say it this way. Or I might be able to say, here is a transition scene that you can cut in between this major scene and that major scene. And this transition scene would have these elements in it. So those are the kinds of things that I get to put in there. And I am just really looking forward to seeing what they do with it. I think that what they're billing it as, Miramax TV, is they're calling it an Indian Downton Abbey, which really made me comfortable because what they're going to do is to make it very lush. They're going to make it rich. They're going to make it colorful. They're going to make it the kind of series that they can hopefully continue for season after season after season, which would be really lovely.